All right, here are solutions to quiz 5, Math 251. We're asked to find this derivative using the chain rule. The way you do that is you think of this as an inside function, that x squared plus 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 6x, and an outside function, sine of x. So we take the derivative, maybe it's worth writing, that the chain rule says that the derivative of f of g of x is equal to f prime of g of x times g prime of x. So it's kind of saying take the derivative of the outside function and evaluate that at the inside function and multiply that by the derivative of the inside function. So here my f of x is sine of x and my g of x is x to the 6th. This is polynomial. So I can take this derivative as this is cosine, because the derivative of sine is cosine of x to the 6th plus 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 6x times the derivative of that whole mess, x to the 6th plus 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 6x. Okay, so this is cosine of all this mess times derivative of x to the 6th is 6x to the 5th using the power rule. 6x squared, 6x plus 6. If you really want, you could factor out a 6 from all these guys. You could write the order here different, but I think this is fine. I'll just leave it like this and move on. This second guy here, I think before I use the chain rule, I'm going to notice that we have a constant out in front. So this is 2 times the derivative of 2 to the 2x plus 2. Lots of 2's in here that can make this a little confusing. And it might be helpful to note over here that the derivative of 2 to the x is 2 to the x times the natural log of 2. So now looking at this problem, I got my 2 out in front that I'll leave alone. I want to take the derivative of 2 to the something. The derivative of 2 to the something will be using this rule over here. Will be this guy, but then you're not done. You still have to multiply that times the derivative of the top part, the inside function, 2x plus 2 in this case. So if you multiply all these through, you get a lot of 2's. You could rewrite this as the natural log of 2 times 4 times 2 to the 2x plus 2. Or if you get a little clever, you can note that 4 is 2 squared. Then we'll have the same base, and we can add the exponents. Natural log of 2 times 2 to the 2x plus 2 is plus 4. So that's probably the cleanest way to write the answer. All right, moving on. Here we have a chain rule inside a chain rule. This problem is going to be pretty hard to do unless you notice a little shortcut. So I'm going to first do it the longhand way. First thing is you have to assume x is greater than 0 in order for this to work. I don't want to get too far into that, but it has something to do with we want to take the square. Well, I'll just leave it at that. The derivative of this big mess, I think it might help to view this as the derivative of 1 minus sine of x squared, that's what sine squared of x means, raised up to the 1/2 power. Right, so I know this is a lot of parentheses here, but I think if you write it like this, it's a little bit easier to use the chain rule on. First take care of the 1/2. So 1/2 times 1 minus sine of x squared to the negative 1/2 times the derivative of all the stuff that was in the inside there. 1 minus sine of x squared. Guess I have one extra parenthesis in there. Should just write this as the derivative of 1 minus sine of x squared. Okay, this stuff's all done. You can just copy this down. I'll write it back in the more familiar notation now that I've already taken the derivative. And this derivative here, the derivative of 1 is just 0. And the derivative of negative sine of x squared will be minus 2 times sine of x raised up to the 1 power times the derivative of sine of x. And so this whole thing is equal to, well, the derivative of sine is cosine, so I can start moving pieces to the top and the bottom of a fraction maybe. 1/2 gives me 2 on the bottom, got this negative 2 up top. All this mess, this 1 minus sine squared of x raised up to the negative 1/2 power, I can put it on the bottom of the fraction, and then I got a sine of x and a cosine of x. And you can simplify this a little bit. The negative 2 and the 2 cancel out. How should I leave this? Alright, we'll leave it as negative sine of x cosine of x divided by the square root of 1 minus sine squared of x. And you can go further than this. You can use some trig functions. You can use some tricks. You can rationalize the denominator. But I'm going to leave this here because I'll show you where this goes using some tricks that we could have used in the first place to kind of shortcut this problem. And the shortcut is, remember, sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. So therefore, 1 minus sine squared is equal to cosine squared. So I can replace, I can really say this derivative, so the derivative of the square root of 1 minus sine squared of x is really just the same as the derivative of the square root of cosine squared of x. And the square root and the squared kind of cancel each other out. You need an absolute value sign except that x is greater than 0, so we can just leave this as, we're saying what's the derivative of cosine of x, and we know that the derivative of cosine is negative sine of x. And maybe now you're wondering, wait, how the hell can we get this as one answer and this is another answer over here? I think what we'll see is if we simplify this, 1 minus sine squared of x is cosine squared. So really what I have is this square root of cosine squared of x, which is just cosine of x, which cancels out with the cosine up top, and we get negative sine of x. So maybe I'll write any of these are okay. You could leave it like this. You could leave it like this. You could leave it in the middle, although I doubt many people did that. But anything like that's fine. I just wanted to show you that it does work out really nicely. And if you get a little clever sometimes and look at the problem before you start taking derivatives, you can make your life a lot easier. Alright, finally this last guy here. The derivative of the sine of 2 times the sine of 2x. Good lord. Alright, so this is a chain rule problem. What I'm going to do is say that the derivative of sine is cosine. So this is cosine of, whoops, took care of this first one, cosine of 2 sine of 2x times the derivative of 2 sine of 2x. And now I got cosine of 2 sine of 2x times, let's see, I got a constant 2 here. I can pull that out in front. And what I want to do is take the derivative of sine of 2x, which I can do. Maybe all this stuff times derivative of sine is cosine. But you're still not done because we have to multiply that by the derivative of 2x, which is 2. So I'm a little short on room here, but maybe I can squeeze it in over here. What we have is for our final answer is this 2 right here times this 2 right here for cosine of 2 sine of 2x, 4 cosine of 2 sine of 2x. I took care of this, 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 and this. We want to multiply that by cosine of 2x. Yuck. Hopefully yours is neater than this. It's kind of tough to read. This guy right here is our final answer. Whew. All right, that's finally the end of this chain rule quiz. Kind of a tricky one. So sorry.